I just wanna be free with my people to prosper and hold them down. Don't you sit and wait, contemplating on a revolution. The time is now. I just wanna be free. 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 Can't you see?
Okay, guys, it's another episode of the Things I Wish I Knew About Money podcast. I'm your host, Camille Smith.
And I'm your co-host, your boy, Dre. It's
Whoa.
another Dana the Gideon.
Yep, episode 18. Oh, snap.
18. A big number.
Right? You know, that knows when you're graduating to
Right?
adulthood.
Yeah, precisely. You know, and I just love what is going on. The feedback on the podcast and everything has been really good, and you know, people are really loving and enjoying what we're talking about. So definitely love that, and we're gonna continue these great discussions.
Yes, I think that's time for yeah.
Yeah. You know, yeah, 'cause, you know, we were here talking, and as I was talking to you, like, about travel, and I say, yo, like, you know, all work and no play really make Tom a dull boy. Yo, it's so hard. I'm telling you, man, that haven't been able to travel, no travel since the start of this year.
You have
It's
no
just been
say.
frustrating. Huh?
You have no say. It's been literally, when was the last time
True.
you were traveling? 2019?
Oh boy,
I know.
that's crazy.
It's rough. And I used to travel like at least once a year. Especially after tax season. That's when I would usually travel. But I mean, I did do like I guess we call it staycation. Like I went camping and stuff, but it wasn't enough. I need sun. We need sun.
Yeah, I tell you, because this is a fake sun, this, because go to the door and step out, cold said way,
Bricks.
you know? Exactly. It's cold same way. Um, so yeah, I was actually looking through my Jamaican passport.
Oh
You know,
man.
me a real Jamaican, me and a Jamaican. So anytime people say, "Oh, are you Jamaican?" I'm like, "Yeah, here's my passport.
It's okay.
Born and raised in Jamaica." You see me? And I was looking back at my American visa. No, me have Canadian visa and American visa. But I was looking back at the visa then, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I remember those days when visa was a thing. You go join line down at embassy to get your visa.
True.
Right? I know Jamaican people know them thing there inside the line down at embassy.
So I'm
All
not
right.
for the Jamaicans. It's okay.
Yeah, right? All
But
the Jamaicans about here. But speaking of embassy and touching on the plane, you know, because I know for, you know, in Jamaica and, you know, elsewhere around the world, getting a visa to either the US or Canada is usually a sign of opportunity, right? For some, right? The ability to go and live and work in another country, right? So people see that, and people see that as a sign of success because them visa are not come easy.
Sure.
And it's, you know, it's with in talking about success and even talking about visa and the opportunity to get something else. Kam and I, you know, we came across this article that talks about the hidden black tax. And it was only fitting that we talk about it on this podcast because we are here to talk about the things we didn't know about money, right? And the things that we probably know, but we never rationalize it or put it into perspective. And so we're going to talk about the hidden black tax, and we would love for you to not only listen, but to share your views about the hidden black tax, right? So we're gonna start a conversation by saying what it is, and Cam is gonna. I don't know if Cam want to lead that conversation, or if you want me to do it, I'm okay.
Yes. I have it right here. the hidden tax, or sorry, hidden black tax. It's actually known as like black professionals or founders. So many black professionals feel pressure to share their income with struggling family members, making it difficult for them to build generational wealth. And if you guys remember our episode Barriers or Generational Wealth, we did dabble in it a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about it again because woo, like I said before, um I haven't experienced it as much as my parents, but I know you've
Hmm.
experienced it a great
Yeah.
deal, especially if you read
Yeah.
his book. So it was a great deal of black tax, or I would even say brown tax, because there is
Right.
other races that experience it as well. But the sad fact about it is this is a way that kind of makes you stagnant in becoming wealthy, because
Yeah.
you're trying to feed more than one mouth or one pocket to
Right. Right.
succeed in life, and with that it's very difficult. So Andre, I think it's best that you discuss like how you've experienced in a bit, and I can only say what I've seen.
Yeah. No, no, so, and you talk about like growing up in Jamaica, and what I see is like it's a cultural thing that, a parent or parents from the ghetto, they have like one or two children who seem to have like, um, there's something about them, like, and parents are like, yo, like, they look like the one that can't come out of the ghetto kind of thing, right? And so parents would try to put their all, especially a single parent would try to put their all into that child and
Yeah.
say, yo, okay, this person can help us come out of the ghetto and can help that. So early in that child's mind, and it was the same for me, right? That you start thinking that, yo, I'm the one that's going to rise above the circumstances. And I'm going to be the one to move myself and my family out of poverty and out of ghetto. So from an early age, for me, I took on that responsibility. And I'm pretty sure there are other kids who take on that responsibility from early,
Mhm.
right? And as I was like progressing through university, I started to see that everybody started looking to me now. Like even while I was in university,
Mm.
people thought that I reached because I was the first, like from me, I was the first from my immediate family to go to university.
Yeah.
So that was new for everybody on my father's side, and everybody
And
saw that. And
before you continue, how much did it cost to go to university? Because university isn't cheap, and we had
it's
to
not cheap. That's the thing. It's actually cost. You're not making any money. In fact, you're spending more than you're making. You're not making anything, right?
Yeah.
I had to take student loan.
Mhm.
I had to take student loan here in Canada.
Mm.
So student loan has been my pathway to higher education.
Yeah.
So what they're, my family wasn't even rationalizing that. They were just like, okay, it's university. They've known that people go to university, they are successful and they make money, they make good money. And so, like, even from university in Jamaica, that was the case. When I came to Canada, it got worse. So, not only was there my mother, well, my grandmother was out of the picture because my grandmother passed away.
Mm.
But then my mother needed me, was looking to me. My father,
Mm.
who there's a different story about him, was looking forward to me. My
Read book.
siblings, friends,
Yeah.
cousins, people that I have never seen or heard of throughout my journey. Everyone started looking. And, I came to Canada, I was excited. I had this opportunity and I was making more money that I'm accustomed to.
Yeah.
So naturally, I feel like I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pay it forward. I'm gonna try to help everybody. And I was sending money to my mother. I was sending money to my siblings. I was sending money to my father and my grandmother, my paternal grandmother,
Hmm.
right? And so I realized that there was a point when I was like struggling in debt,
Yeah.
and but it came to a point where I've accounted for helping my mother and everybody else as a naturally occurring expense. So it's kind of like I'm like, okay, I got my paycheck, I
Yeah.
have my light bill, my water bill, and amount to send to family.
Yeah.
And so that expense was built in my budget,
Mm,
and I still was amassing debt, and I wasn't paying off my debt, even though there was this money that I was sending back home,
you weren't paying.
right? To send to family. And I literally said to myself, I was like, I was going crazy. I said, something has to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started put it into perspective, like when you go up on the plane
Yeah.
and the people say, yo, in case there's an emergency, make sure you put on your mask before assisting others. And then I started saying to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to help myself and build something for myself if I continue like this. I haven't even been in Canada. At the time, I think I've only been here for a year or a year and a half while that was going on. I said, there's no way I'm going to get by and build even a foundation for myself with all of this going on. And so after a period of time, I literally called all of my family and everybody who would ask. And I also made a post on my Facebook. And I said to them, I said, hey, I need my chance to figure out my life and to build something for myself. I need to get out of debt. I need to pay off my student loan. I need to do all of these things. And if I keep helping everybody, I'm not going to get by. Right?
That's how you build boundaries.
Boundaries, exactly. And that's really what it is now. It's boundary, because if there's no boundary, people are going to constantly come and they're going to come.
Yeah.
And I get it. For some of us, we feel that obligation. So I'm not even trying to, and there is this argument about why it's being called a tax. That's a separate argument from the whole thing. And we can discuss that whether it's a tax or if it's helping people. But I get it. So there's this inclination, right? Because your mom and your dad and everybody or whomever back home who help you, they were there for you through thick and thin. So naturally you want to help. But in doing so, and like even when we came across the statistics,
Yeah.
these statistics, it shows that like white people, for example, because they are more successful people within their family, there tends not to be that burden placed on them. So they are able to pay off student loan or whatever, or get inheritance and then put that toward, put their saving toward buying property and whatever. Not, the fact that we have to be sending money back home combined with low income, right? So it creates a cycle.
A crazy
So a crazy cycle. And yes, it's the elephant in the room, I would say. And how can we talk about this? How can we build have a reasonable conversation? Because yes, we all, doesn't matter your race, you're gonna help your family.
Yeah.
But should it be a recurring expense? And should you be helping everyone?
Woo, that elephant in the room, because you kind of have to have a healthy discussion. And before we talk about that, I'll throw some statistics out there. So, a report from the Conference Board of Canada showed that for every dollar earned by a white worker, black workers earn about 80.4 cents. So just imagine that. And it doesn't mention all races, but there is a crazy thing that shows as well. Canadians, like Canadians from different parts of the world, in Canadians sent abroad 5.2 billion in 2017. Immigrants from the Philippines, India, Jamaica, Haiti, and Nigeria are the top of the list of those sending money back home. And I've heard of obviously friends sending money back home.
Right.
Did I say all? Yes, actually all of them. Each and every one of those countries or islands, someone has sent money back home. And I think because, like you said, it's been ingrained to us that, our parents did everything for us. So it's like, we have to give back. And I know we mentioned it before that you shouldn't feel obligated, but you're going to kind of feel guilty if you don't help them. And I think in a sense, I would love to help my folks if push comes to shove, but I also want to teach them ways to build wealth instead of like you. I know it's hard. It's harder, like back home in Jamaica, because my folks do send money back home time to time,
Mm-hmm.
or we send a barrel. I feel like it's okay in a sense to have a
Mm-hmm.
budget or a tax, but it can't be your whole paycheck, right? If you're sending your whole paycheck, you're never
Mm-hmm.
gonna get by. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
you have $100 and you're like, listen, I can
Right.
only afford to give you $10 to $20.
Mm-hmm.
Me, if someone's gonna offer me money, hey, I'll take it. I'll take as much as I can, because at the same time we all have our struggles and we all
Right.
have to be able to master this, because I wouldn't want to, as much as I know my folks um pay, like, got into debt to help me, or or paid the wave in a certain way. I know that my teachings of personal finance is able to help them, because I'm teaching
Mm-hmm.
them as well, and helping them gain the wealth
Right.
they missed out. And I was actually watching, I don't know if you watch I Am the Athlete. It's actually a
No.
dope. It's actually a
Oh
really,
yeah.
yeah.
I,
It's with the athletes, so it's NFL athletes. I know I don't
yeah.
watch NFL anymore, but you know what? They're retired. So
Yeah.
retired athletes discussing about their issues with family, career, or retired money and stuff. And there was a gentleman that came online, or came on the YouTube ones, and he said what usually happens is that your money that you earn is supposed to pay down, right, to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
or your future and stuff. And normally what happens is that we're paying it back.
Right. Right.
So
Oh, interesting.
we're going
Going
backwards.
backwards. Right.
So you're never gonna pay forward.
They're gonna pay for it. And
And
that speaks to the post that I made on my WhatsApp status recently, where I said, I would never want my child would never, or any of my children shouldn't be responsible for taking care of me financially. My
mm,
responsibility is to build my own retirement fund and to build an inheritance fund for my kids, right? And so it's important that we talk about this, because yes, it might rub some people the wrong way or whatnot. But
mhm,
the idea behind addressing something like this, and I wouldn't call it a tax, so to speak, because if I'm helping my mom or my grandmother who's
mhm.
sick, right, and need help, like I wouldn't consider it a tax,
Correct.
right? So maybe perhaps, the tax part is probably not the most um, useful, but the conversation should be had about, just like Camille said, rather than doing it backwards, how we do it, pay it forward instead of paying it backward,
Mhm,
right? And that's the idea. Because at some point, if you don't pay it forward, you're
mhm.
gonna have a situation where everybody's just starting over from scratch, and
Yes.
it just keep continuing. But if I pay it forward, if I create a situation where I set up myself and I start teaching my parents and whomever to set up themselves from now for retirement, then they won't have to rely on me, right? And so now I can set up myself for retirement while also building an inheritance for
Mhm.
my kids. So when they start, they're not starting way at the back of the line.
Correct.
They're starting right at the line with everybody else,
What? And
right?
that,
And
that's
so
what
that has to be the focus. Eh?
exactly, and that's what should happen, right?
Yeah,
Like, we know that most other races, they're far forward than we are.
yeah,
Like, and we could discuss about this later. Like, the number one debt that everyone has, usually, other than consumer debt, like credit cards, is student loans.
yeah,
Can you imagine if we were able to have like a certain amount, like a trust fund? I know some people aren't um key with trust funds, or the RASPs. If you were able to at least put in a little money and see it grow, that would help your child tenfold.
mm-hmm.
And they would, and then they wouldn't stress, and then whatever like money that they're accumulating with working before they go to university and stuff, they can help in the household. That's
Exactly.
the thing. If you're or even if you are able to have like a family fund.
Mm-hmm.
So there's especially if you're still living at home, if you have money pooled together, you're able to help with the family or education. I think the education is the best part because no one's losing when you're
Yeah.
gaining more knowledge, right?
100%.
I seen my mom, she's learning more while I've been like learning and teaching. I'm like, and I'm so proud of you, mama. um I just see like she's getting to understand, and I know that if she had known this earlier,
Right, right.
it would have been a different story. But that's why we need to actually help the kids as well
Mm.
and educate the kids, teenagers, or the young adults, and just have that healthy conversation. It doesn't, it's going to be tricky if your parents are old school, but
Mm-hmm.
there are parents that are in their, let's say, 50s. We'll say 50,
Yeah.
and let's say 50s. In the 50s,
Man,
and
I call a 50-year-old them old enough because they're not really
I
like
did not
call
call
old.
them.
I
I
know people in their 50s, if you call them old, a big fight.
I never called
So
them old. But they're in that way of, that old way of thinking, like,
Mhm.
oh, my child is going to be my retirement fund. Yes,
Yeah.
I don't have to
Let's
worry.
just say the most experienced among us.
Most experience. So if we're able to kind of tweak that mindset, and it's all about
Yeah.
the mindset, it comes back to the mindset.
Right.
But how about your family back home? Because for some reason, them always think if you live in foreign, you're rich.
No, people are, well, no, that's Jamaica. People back home and wherever home is, literally thinks that money grow up on tree. But here, let me tell you, like, I think part of the problem, and as you were talking, three things came to my mind, but I'm gonna say something before I address the three things.
Yeah.
But part of the reason why people think things come by so easily in foreign, and I mean, I think it's changing now with social media because people have more access to what happens in foreign, right?
Yep.
Because back then, foreign was private, so you don't know about foreign, what go on a foreign unless you go up on a plane and come a foreign.
And
But
then they're
now with
like,
social
ah,
media, people
shut.
have foreign all when they not no visa.
Mm.
So, but what happened is that in going back home, a
Yeah.
lot of people flash out the latest everything, trending, big chain, big this and everything, big phone, as my granny would say.
True.
And when you got it now, you say somebody asks you, oh, you get a phone. Oh, I just got it $0 down. Oh, I got this $0 down. But without fully translating what that means to people, right? And so people just think, say, yo, you can just walk in a store and get any phone or anything $0 down without knowing that, oh, you have to pay it monthly or whatever. You're paying for it. It's not that you get it free.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason. People literally think money grow up on tree. But like I said, that's changing with social media.
Mm.
But what I want to touch on in terms of the hidden black tax,
Yeah.
and one of the things that growing up I always hear, and this is almost as a justification, and if you're a Christian, you don't want to fall in breach of this,
Mm.
right? Honor your parents for
Yeah.
your days to be long, and right. And so a lot of parents and a lot of community people,
Mm-hmm.
they would interpret part of this to mean that you must send money come back come give your family, because if you're not giving them money, you're not honoring them in the sense because your parents were the one who helped you to get to that point. We're not gonna touch on the Christian side because we don't want to go off in the Christianity, but that's a part of the culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? That a lot of people feel like, yo, I have to send back home and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
but just like I said, and I agree, the knowledge piece is really big because sometimes, like you realize that, okay, not because we've been doing it this way, it means that that's the only way or the best way.
Clearly, it's not working.
For me, I like to teach people how to fish.
Yeah.
I don't believe in sending a fish every month. You will see that with me. Even when my little brother came to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
one time I brought him, well, he was born here, but one time I brought him and show him around. He enjoyed that. Next morning he come, oh, Andre, you can't come drive me around. I said, no, bus out there. GPS only call me if you get lost.
Well, I know where you live. You live in Peel. You can't tell him to go.
Well, no, I wasn't living in Peel at the time. I was living at Jane and Lawrence at the time.
Okay. At least
And I
it's
said, yeah, I said, no, the bus literally come in front of the house.
yeah.
Go take the bus. Here's the app. I show him how to use it. Only call me if you get lost.
Yeah.
Him call me the first day of taking the bus and saying get lost. They go pick him up. Second day him get lost. I think the third or fourth time, this man I take bus go everywhere. And that's just my philosophy. And so the knowledge piece. The other piece that I want to touch on, and I think this is a piece that our community needs to grasp more. Compound interest. I know we've talked about it in a session, but the magnitude of it cannot be underestimated. A lot of people want to be rich today. The reality is that that will never happen for a lot of us. If you focus on getting rich over time, you will get rich.
Yes.
So stop focusing on instant gratification. Stop saying, yo, I'm going to make 100,000 today. Yo, I'm going to do this. Focus on investments today that grow over time. And that's the true heart of compound interest. And that's what the community needs to understand.
They call that the eighth wonder, right?
Exactly. It is.
And folks, let's get this real straight. There have been so many people that say, "Oh, well, you don't know if you're gonna die tomorrow," but then all of a sudden you're 50-odd-year-old, and you were
I love when you say that.
20, and you've
Right?
been doing that since you're 20. Come on, save for your future. Your
Exactly.
future self will thank you later. I know when I turn, I'm gonna say 80, 90. I'm gonna be like, yo, bless up 30-year-old Camille.
But you know what's the interesting part? And you said that is so true. But the interesting part about that is that when it comes to spending money and investing for the future, people say, oh, what if I die tomorrow? I'm not gonna enjoy this. But then when they actually buy it now, they're like, yo, I hope I live long so I can enjoy this. So why when you come on to investing, you find a negative way to rationalize it. But when you already spend on the expense, you think about living longer. You know what I mean? I get it, because you want to live longer if you enjoy it.
Right?
And the other one too, that that's a popular one. I'm gonna live this tomorrow. But the other one is the YOLO, like no, people need to live a little. No, nobody not saying enough to live. Exactly. And you know, and I think we talk about that in barriers to generational wealth, but you need to focus on the long term. You need to have a long-term strategy. Exactly. Right? And we are gonna continue to start over if we don't correct some of these things. I was reading an article recently, and it was saying that white people net worth, I always say net worth is 171,000, the average. I think it was average or median, one of the two. Right. And this was in the US. And for Black people, the average or median was 17,000.
Damn.
Right? Yeah.
Nah.
That's that 10 times. White people have a net worth of 10 times that of the median or the average Black person. But not only that, this article was saying that by, I think it was 2082 or something like that, or 2030, I don't remember what it was, that, you know, the median for Black people is going to be negative.
Exactly. I heard about that one, or like zero or negative.
Or, yeah.
Like,
so this is the problem if we keep paying it backward and instead of forward.
Exactly. And I know there's a sense like, especially in the States, they're student loans in one sense, and we could talk about that. Like I keep saying, we could talk about that later, but like their student loans is expensive. It's like almost as much as a mortgage.
It's true.
And it's like just the thought of it makes me sick, actually.
Right?
But it's also like, I know there was back in the day, there was they weren't able to get houses there. And I can only imagine, well, no, because their housing is really cheaper than over here, or way cheaper, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
than in Canada. But if they're able to plan accordingly and not spend as much, and actually learn to save for a down
Mm-hmm.
payment, or even
Right.
to build as a community, like crowdfunding type of thing, like with their family and trustworthy friends, they'll be able to utilize on properties or rental properties, so they won't have to be in the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
There's so
Yeah.
many ways of learning. It's just we need to learn.
We
we,
have to learn new.
we gotta learn what the
We have to
Romans
learn.
did.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've discovered, and I mean, this is true probably for anything,
Hmm.
the more creative you are,
Hmm.
the more likely you are to be successful in what you're doing.
That
If
is
you follow the status quo, chances are you're gonna get status quo outcome, right? Which is in saying that, okay, if you follow and do what everybody else do,
yeah,
okay, chances are you're gonna be in debt and you're gonna have like negative asset or whatever. But
losses.
if you start to be creative and start to think outside the box and start to think about other ways in which you can diversify.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this because even my situation, like while I was going through my process of recovery, I've recognized the importance of multiple streams as of stream of income, for example,
Mhm.
because what multiple stream, one of the things that multiple stream of income does is that when your primary paycheck comes in and you max it out and whatever and bills, 3 or 4 days later, you're like, oh, I don't have anything, but boom, work comes in from a client or whatever, or from another investment source, money
Mhm.
comes in, you're back on the positive again, you're able to go buy,
Exactly.
right? And money, money is a motivator. Money is it affects our mental health. It affects a lot of things,
Hmm.
right? And what I want is like, like I said, we've talked about this every week, and Kam and I are on the same page, is that we want to have more people from our community, right?
That's
To have to build wealth, to have something to transfer, to focus more on ownership,
hmm
right? And stop focusing on the instant gratifications, like you get a good job, immediately you want to get your own place, but your own place is not necessarily your own place because you're paying somebody else's mortgage, right? It's
right.
the things that we need to know about money, the things that we need to be aware of. And so this is part of what we do on this podcast. We highlight the things because Kam and I, we are both Black. We understand the culture, we understand the struggles, right? And so we talk about them because, yes,
Real.
they might be uncomfortable, they might be uneasy, but we have to talk about them and see how we can help the community to build healthy ways of managing their finances and things, you know?
Agree, because like Dre just said, we're both black. And my
As if we never know that.
I mean, my journey in finances was a little up and down, as Dre's was as well. His is a
Mhm.
little different than mine. Like he came true. He's like busting through. Like, this is not gonna stop me. And I'm trying to, you know, chug away and do
Yeah,
those things. Um, but I know, like, in a sense, we both trying to educate our family, trying to support our family in any way that we can, and push through. Like I said, like, we have assets.
right.
Have assets, and we know other types of streams of income
Yeah.
to manage, so we're able to even be better. Like, I already know in 10, 20 years from now, I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
remember those times when we were having Mr. Noodles or Franks and Beans and stuff. We don't have to worry about that anymore, because
Right, right.
we're able to learn, like, how to, and then we were able to cherish those moments. Like, there's gonna be times where like, woo, remember those times we were struggling?
Mm-hmm.
But now we've learned so much that we
Yeah.
don't have to struggle anymore, and even our children or our grandchildren and stuff won't have to struggle because we're going
Yeah.
to plant that seed of like especially the financial literacy seed
Mm-hmm.
and help them grow into being
Right.
more responsible men and women in the future
Yeah.
to come. So I think
Right.
I'm not even worried as much, but I just like to educate because
It's a key.
even though we're it's the hidden black tax, if you spend it wisely, I'm just gonna go back to spending wisely. Like, if you have a set budget for it, fine. But also make sure you have money set aside for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Set some money. Pay yourself first.
100%. Yeah.
Pay
You
yourself
always want to pay yourself first.
because if you don't, who will?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the I think we talked about the glass half fill.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to fill your cup. There, that's the saying. You have to fill your cup before you're able to provide for others.
Mm-hmm.
And if the only way you can provide for others is knowledge, then do so.
Right.
But if you're rich, fine, by all means.
Whatever you want. Yeah, and I mean, the the gratification and and I see it
Mhm.
all the time, like the unfortunate reality, like and this is just why financial literacy is so important for our community.
So important.
When I came here, I see so many organizations, supporting the community in terms of housing,
Mhm.
helping them to find affordable housing. I see organization supporting in terms of sex ed. I see organizations supporting in terms of, integrating whatever that looks like. I see all these types of services, but what I don't see for newcomers is financial literacy,
Mm.
helping people to understand the gravity and the magnitude
True.
of the financial system in Canada, right? And I think it's something that's lacking for newcomers. It's something that's lacking for the school, and so that's why we do what we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this: like, I'm not giving anybody on this podcast no um, I'm not even gonna say what I want to say, but we are speaking facts. Like, I have seen the outcome of changing the things that I do 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna tell you the numbers because I'm about my personal business, but 4 years worth of change,
Mhm.
right? I cannot tell you the magnitude and how marvelous the outcome is, right? By just making small tweaks. I didn't drastically change anything.
Correct.
The only drastic change that I did at the onset was to say to my family and everybody, and I said, hey, you know what? I need to step away for a little to
Mhm.
focus on myself and to clean up my finances because I don't like where things was going. That
Yeah.
was the only drastic change. But
Mhm.
from that point going forward, it was all about education,
Yeah.
right? And I remember, growing up, people always said knowledge are the key and blah blah blah. It
Yeah.
is true. Knowledge is power, right? But when you talk about knowledge, it's not so much only what you learn in school. It's learning how the society works,
Mm.
learning how the institution works, learning how to invest, learn how to do these things. So, and I get it. And so even if you have low income, your circumstances, there are always struggles. But within every struggle, there can be opportunity,
Mhm.
right? So you now have to figure out how you can monetize or capitalize on your circumstances and whether that would even involve pooling together of resources. Remember, I said earlier, creativity is what it is, right? And I always talk, I remember when I went over, first moving to my wife's mom place, and the
Yeah.
pink carpet all over the floor, and the house was like, it's a big house, and it was like, like nobody was living there. So,
Mm.
the walls want paint, and yeah, picture picture the West Wing. You watch what is it name?
West.
Beauty and the Beast. And the beast said, don't go on the West Wing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like me, my enough self. My wife was like, you sure you want to go over there? Don't go over there. It's kind of, like it's locked up for years. And I'm like, no, I want to go on the West Wing. I'm fine. Because I'm like that. I have like a soldier boy kind of thing. Like I can sleep anywhere. I'll
Yeah.
even sleep on the street. As long as, this kind of goes back into like some of the things my grandmother
At least they
instilled
make
in me. And she would say, one of the things my grandmother always said, I can go a hell of a live with Satan as long as me have rules and regulation. Right?
it.
As long as me have boundaries and things will govern me.
Yeah.
And but I'll tell you, like, going in that situation, and I put myself, it was an opportunity. It wasn't the most ideal opportunity,
Mm.
but sometimes we just have to sit back and look at our circumstances. And it goes back to that principle
Yeah.
of teaching a person how to fish, right? Because if I hand you fish every time, and the time when there's no fish, all I go do, I just focus on the hunger. Oh Lord, me hungry, me don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. But if I teach you how to fish,
Mm.
you're gonna be like, you know what? The rod, nah work, this, we need to go somewhere, we need to try. You're gonna start to try to figure out things on your own.
Exactly. And
And you
that's
need to think that way about your finances.
critical thinking in a sense.
Yeah.
Once you learn the basic, you're able to get a better understanding of life and
Hmm.
money in a sense. Like there's so many not loopholes, but there's so many things that folks don't know about certain things that, and then once they get it, they're like, oh, all this time I
Right?
could have been saving money or and things. And I like how you said like you had to do something like a slingshot. You gotta pull back a little bit
Yeah,
as AKA boundaries to phew, to
precisely.
go
Yeah.
forward and move forward. And like that's I think that's what a lot of people need to get an understanding. Something you're doing in life isn't
Hmm.
working.
Right.
If you feel stressed because of certain things that you're doing, like with finance and stuff, is because you're repeating. You remember what is it? If you keep repeating the same thing, it's basically insanity. So you
Yeah.
have to change something
Have to change something.
to be able to, even though sometimes change is uncomfortable, but if you want to see better results, you have to change your ways.
100%. I completely agree with that. You have to change to see results, even with your finances. Like, even if you give yourself, I remember I read, and I'll tell you this, I cannot talk about reading enough. Even if you can, if you don't understand the word them,
Mm.
count the words them until you can read it and look up word. But personal finance blogs, I can't tell you how many I read. And I remember this guy was talking about how he paid off his mortgage by living off macaroni and cheese and ramen noodle for like how many years. I mean, I'm not saying go that extreme, but this is a change that this person made in their personal situation,
Correct.
right? And so, and here's the thing I want to put out there,
Mm.
that everybody's situation is different. And when
Absolutely.
you have sick relatives, when you have kids in the mix and all of that, it becomes a more complicated mix. And I understand that. So what I'm not saying is not, it's not taking into account, what we're saying is not taking into account everybody's unique situation. But
Exactly.
I think the bigger message is there's opportunity within every struggle. But
Mm.
it just depends on what you're focusing on. If you're looking at the glass half empty or half full. And just like Camille said, like you have to change what you're doing. If you want to see better results, you have to change something. And that something could mean stop doing some type of habit or whatever you're doing, or minimize it for a period, or eliminate it for a period,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whatever it is, that those outcomes will happen if you make that change.
And discipline.
Big one.
If you don't have discipline, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
If you finally see like, okay,
Hmm.
I think people need a reality check sometimes,
Yeah.
because
No, I think
sometimes
so.
I try to give reality checks with like look at your statements. Look
Yeah.
at your monthly statement. What did you spend money on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot on Amazon and things. I'm like, so you see that there's an issue. So how are we gonna fix it? I'm just gonna keep shopping. No.
Right.
Like, okay, example.
Yeah.
Last year, I I this phone game. I got addicted to a phone game, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Gardenscape.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I kid you not, at first, because when you have Google Play money, you're like, all right, I'm not spending no money. I got this free money. And then all of a sudden you become addicted. And then you start spending. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna
Right.
spend $1.99. And then, you need more points. You can't wait.
You have to buy more points.
You gotta get $2.99. There was a time when I spent $6.99. I was like, Camille, whew. And then I did my budget, and I said, no, I did not just spend that much on this damn game. As much as it gave me pleasure, a little bit, but I was
Yeah.
like, no, there's some other goals that I want. So I literally went cold turkey. Like, till this day, I'm like, oh, I wonder how this game is. I wonder. But I know I have other goals
Yeah.
in play that I want to reach, and if I was to go back, I would have to budget wisely and not go over my budget. And I'm
Yeah.
not doing it anytime soon. Even though the game was live, the game was nice, but I just couldn't.
Yeah. You have to be aware. And I actually there's this quote that's in my book, chapter 3 of my book.
Mm.
And I actually I need to go watch this movie again. It's a Netflix original. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's called All Day and Night, right? Have you ever seen that?
All day and night?
Yeah.
Who's in it?
Who in it again? I don't remember, but it's honestly it's so good. I love it. I'm gonna actually watch it today now that I'm talking about it. But this line, as I was watching it, it stood out to me, and I quoted it in my book.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "I envision a life of luxury," and it's crazy because as I was watching this series on Netflix, I literally pause and replay and write down the quote because it
Nice.
just speaks so much to me.
So,
I envision,
and a question. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. Would you rather have the luxury now or the luxury later? Or evenly out?
evenly. Well, here's this. I envision a life of luxury, but in the ghetto, survival comes first, right? And so, and I think that probably, to some extent, will answer your question because it depends on your circumstances that you'll realize that luxury have to come later. Because when I was in the ghetto, right,
Yeah.
growing up in Spanish Town, I think about luxury. I didn't fully understand the scope of luxury at that time, and luxury for me was flying to a foreign country. So that would have been luxury for me. And because that's what I hear everybody talking about in my community, like, yo, I go foreign and so on, so on, so. So that's luxury for me. But as I got older and I started experiencing different things and traveling and whatever, my perception of luxury, it's changed, right? But to answer your question, if I would rather have luxury now or later, I would prefer to have luxury later, because I want to invest today. I have to focus on building a financial foundation that can sustain and weather any storm, right? I need to build that foundation. And then later on, once I have a solid foundation, then I can, focus on the luxury piece. Because for me, now that I brought a child into this world, it's no longer about me. It's about him.
Yes.
Right. So I can choose to focus on luxury now and flashy and spend and do all these nice things. But if I'm not securing a future for him, then he's gonna have to start over from the point where I was starting from.
And that's a struggle. That's that rat race that we're trying to get out of.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's very tricky to realize that rat race and how to get out of it.
And how to get out of it. And part of the reason why I read this quote too,
Yes.
and I speak about it in my book, So if you haven't gotten my book, you should check it out.
Get
Um,
it.
get it? Living purposefully beyond the walls of the ghetto. But I said at some point, right? So this book says I wanted to get out of the ghetto,
Yeah.
and but in the ghetto, survival comes first. At some point through my journey, I had to start focus on living and stop surviving. Because when when you have a survival mindset, you think only about how you're gonna get by the next day.
Correct.
When you have a living mindset, you think about how your life is gonna be for the eternity. You start to think well ahead. So, and it's a little, it seems simple, but this, the mindset, the power of positive thinking, and that's even what part of the reason why I talked about positive thinking in my book. So that mindset shift, right? A lot of us are focusing on survival. When I hear people tell me, "Oh, I'm just working to pay the bills," I almost want to like slap them and to stop saying that. Don't say that to yourself. Don't work to pay no bills.
Why?
Work to build a legacy. Because if you only focus on working to pay the bills, you're not focusing on building a legacy or building a financial future. You need to see and it sounds simple and it sounds like, oh, it's just words or it's just phrase or whatever. But those can translate into action.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
and any one of my coworkers or anybody can tell you that they've never heard me say I'm working to pay the bills. If they say it, I might say, oh, yeah, I understand. I might acknowledge what they're saying because I can't slap somebody at work. But, but yeah.
And it's true because and you know what? I can't wait till I get to be in that tough love aspect and just tell people as it is, be a female Kevin Samuels. But I also think that you can't, if you think negative about money or your life,
right,
you're going to have negative habits about and life. And that's why I'm, as much as we're human and we can't get rid of overthinking or negative,
right.
But if you one step at a time, if you have a plan, a budget, have a discipline and everything, you'll be able to push through and stuff. Whew, I feel like we've gave some great gems. And
man, I think today was like always is definitely we give some good tips and whatnot. And yeah, I think we can. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say to the people, then.
All I want to say is big up to you guys, or you ladies.
Big up.
To ladies and jets.
Ladies and gents.
Share, subscribe, like, comment. Just talk to us, guys. We want you, ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us.
Yeah, we need to hear from you people.
We're lonely. Why haven't you guys talked to us?
Yeah.
And things, and especially about this. Like, is there anyone that feels the pressure of this?
The hidden tax.
Yes, the hidden tax or the obligation to pay.
Yeah.
Backwards, not
backwards. Yeah. And I want to leave one quote to like leave it positive, as Camille said, keep it positive. I want to leave another quote from my book, because in this chapter I spoke about healing and restoration and how I was able to restore from some of the things that I experienced. Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. Small but powerful quote that I want to leave.
On that note, jeez. Until next time, folks.
Until next time.
Is it?
Big up on yourself.
Yep.
If I want it, me hate a fern killer. Me no believe in a fern killer. Family. I me say family. Me love me family, them to me heart. You the earth, one of them. Real kill it, to the end, from me start.